For decades, the Gulf region has played a central role in shaping the global economy, largely through its vast energy exports and its close financial ties with major world markets. Because so much of the world's oil passes through this region, any disruption to these trade routes has the potential to create ripple effects across global commerce, energy prices, and international supply chains. One of the most strategically important waterways is the Strait of Hormuz. It's a narrow passage that serves as a critical gateway for a significant share of the world's oil and other essential commodities. As geopolitical tensions in the area continue to rise, many analysts have expressed concern that prolonged instability could affect fuel availability, increase transportation costs, and place additional pressure on economies that rely heavily on imported energy. Some experts also warn that disruptions to the movement of agricultural inputs and fertilizers through the region could create challenges for food production in parts of the world if supply chains remain constrained during key growing seasons. These concerns have fueled broader discussions about the potential economic and humanitarian consequences that could emerge if tensions escalate further. At the center of this uncertainty is Iran's strategic position near the Strait of Hormuz, giving it considerable influence over one of the world's busiest maritime corridors. Supporters of this view argue that maintaining leverage in the region could strengthen Iran's economic position, encourage industrial development, and deepen trade relationships with countries such as China and Russia. At the same time, the United States has continued efforts to limit Iranian oil exports through sanctions and naval operations intended to restrict shipments, particularly those bound for China. However, enforcing such measures across the vast expanse of the Indian Ocean presents significant logistical challenges, leading many observers to question how effective a complete maritime blockade could realistically be. Meanwhile, neighboring Gulf states are closely monitoring developments, as any interruption to commercial shipping directly affects their economies. The United Arab Emirates, and especially Dubai, has built its reputation as one of the world's leading trade and logistics hubs, making the uninterrupted flow of goods through regional waterways essential to its economic success. As a result, every new development in the Strait of Hormuz carries implications that extend far beyond the Middle East, influencing global markets, international trade, energy security, and geopolitical stability. At the same time, another long-term consequence is beginning to attract increasing attention from governments, investors, and energy experts around the world. While immediate concerns often focus on shipping routes, fuel prices, and regional stability, prolonged uncertainty in the Gulf could gradually reshape the way countries think about energy itself. Every period of disruption serves as a reminder that relying too heavily on a small number of critical supply routes creates vulnerabilities that can affect entire economies. As a result, many nations are reevaluating how they produce, transport, and consume energy, with greater emphasis on building systems that are less exposed to geopolitical risks. For decades, oil and natural gas have remained the backbone of the global economy. Industries, transportation networks, facilities, and electricity generation in many regions still depend heavily on fossil fuels. However, repeated episodes of market volatility have highlighted the financial and strategic costs of relying on imported energy. When uncertainty increases around key maritime routes, governments are often forced to spend more on fuel imports, businesses face rising operating costs, and consumers experience higher prices for everything from transportation to everyday goods. These challenges encourage policymakers to search for more stable and predictable energy solutions. One of the most significant responses has been the rapid expansion of renewable energy projects. Solar farms, wind power installations, hydroelectric facilities, and other renewable technologies are becoming central components of national energy strategies. Unlike imported oil, these resources are typically produced within a country's own borders, allowing governments to reduce their dependence on overseas suppliers. This shift is not only viewed as an environmental initiative, but increasingly as a matter of economic resilience and national security. The cost of renewable technologies has also changed dramatically over the past decade. Advances in manufacturing, improvements in efficiency, larger-scale production have made solar panels and wind turbines more affordable than ever before. In many parts of the world, renewable electricity can now compete directly with traditional fossil fuel generation on cost alone. As investment continues to grow, many countries see an opportunity to expand clean energy capacity while also protecting themselves from future supply disruptions caused by geopolitical tensions. Adults. Energy independence has become a strategic objective for many governments. Rather than relying primarily on imported fuel, countries are investing in diversified energy systems that combine renewable power, domestic natural gas production where available, nuclear energy in some regions, and advanced energy storage technology. This diversified approach helps reduce exposure to sudden market shocks while improving long-term energy security. Instead of placing all their reliance on a single source or supplier, governments are building more flexible systems capable of adapting to changing global conditions. Private investors have also begun adjusting their long-term strategies. Large financial institutions increasingly consider geopolitical stability when evaluating major energy investments. Projects that rely heavily on vulnerable shipping lanes or politically sensitive regions may face higher financing costs because investors recognize the risks associated with supply interruptions. In contrast, renewable energy projects often provide more predictable operating conditions once infrastructure has been established, making them attractive options for long-term investment portfolios. Technological innovation is accelerating this transformation as well. Battery storage systems have improved significantly, allowing renewable electricity generated during sunny or windy periods to be stored and used later when demand increases. This addresses one of the traditional limitations of renewable energy by making electricity supplies more reliable throughout the day. As storage technology continues to advance, countries can integrate larger amounts of renewable generation into their national grids without sacrificing stability. Electric transportation represents another major component of this evolving landscape. Governments around the world are encouraging the adoption of electric vehicles through infrastructure development, research funding, and consumer incentives. As more electric cars, buses, and commercial vehicles enter service, demand for gasoline and diesel could gradually decline, although this transition will likely take many years. Every increase in electric vehicle adoption reduces dependence on imported petroleum products and strengthens domestic energy security. Industrial sectors are also exploring alternative energy sources. Manufacturers are investing in cleaner production methods, while shipping companies examine new fuels such as green hydrogen, ammonia, and advanced biofuels. Airlines continue researching sustainable aviation fuels designed to reduce reliance on conventional jet fuel over time. These innovations remain in various stages of development, but sustained geopolitical uncertainty provides additional motivation to accelerate research and commercial deployment. Another important trend involves expanding regional electricity networks. Neighboring countries are increasingly connecting their power grids, allowing electricity generated in one nation to support another during periods of high demand or temporary shortages. Cross-border transmission infrastructure creates greater flexibility and helps reduce dependence on imported fossil fuels. As renewable generation expands across different regions, interconnected grids can balance fluctuations in supply more effectively. Critical minerals have also become an increasingly important part of the global energy conversation. Technologies such as batteries, electric vehicles, wind turbines, and solar panels require materials including lithium, nickel, cobalt, copper, and rare earth elements. Governments are therefore seeking to diversify supply chains for these resources in much the same way they previously focused on oil security. New mining projects, recycling initiatives, and alternative battery chemistries are being developed to reduce dependence on any single supplier or region. Research institutions continue working on next-generation energy technologies that could further reshape global markets. Improvements in hydrogen production, advanced nuclear reactors, carbon capture systems, and synthetic fuels all represent areas receiving increased investment. Although many of these technologies are still developing, they reflect a broader effort to create a more diversified and resilient global energy system capable of withstanding future geopolitical disruptions. Developing countries are also participating in this transition, although the pace varies depending on financial resources and infrastructure. Many nations with abundant sunlight or strong wind conditions view renewable energy as an opportunity to expand electricity access while reducing long-term fuel import costs. International finance organizations have increased support for renewable infrastructure projects, recognizing that greater energy independence can contribute to both economic development and long-term stability. Corporations with global supply chains are paying closer attention to energy resilience as well. Large manufacturers increasingly evaluate the reliability of local power systems before selecting locations for new facilities. Companies are investing directly in renewable electricity generation, on-site battery storage, and energy efficiency improvements to reduce operational risks associated with fluctuating fuel prices. These investments often improve both financial performance and supply chain reliability over the long term. Consumers are gradually becoming part of this transformation too. Rooftop solar installations, residential battery systems, energy-efficient appliances, and smart home technologies allow households to reduce electricity consumption while lowering dependence on traditional energy sources. As these technologies become more affordable, millions of individual decisions collectively contribute to broader changes in national energy demand. Financial markets frequently respond to geopolitical developments by reassessing future expectations for energy industries. Periods of prolonged uncertainty can encourage greater investment in companies focused on renewable technologies, battery manufacturing, power grid modernization, and energy efficiency. Although traditional oil and gas remain essential to the global economy, investors increasingly recognize that diversification across multiple energy sectors may provide greater resilience in an unpredictable geopolitical environment. International cooperation is likely to play an increasingly important role as countries navigate these changes. Governments are forming new partnerships focused on renewable technology development, critical mineral supply chains, electricity interconnections, and clean energy research. These collaborations aim to strengthen long-term energy security while reducing exposure to disruptions that can arise when global supply chains depend too heavily on a limited number of strategic transit routes. The pace of this transition will not be uniform across every country or industry. Different regions face unique economic realities, infrastructure limitations, and policy priorities that influence how quickly renewable energy can expand. Some economies will continue relying heavily on fossil fuels for many years, while others may move more aggressively toward diversified energy systems. Even so, repeated periods of geopolitical tension continue reinforcing the broader lesson that energy security extends beyond simply producing enough fuel. It also depends on diversification, technological innovation, resilient infrastructure, the ability to adapt as global conditions evolve. As governments, businesses, and investors respond to these challenges, decisions made today could significantly influence the future structure of international energy markets and reduce the world's long-term dependence on traditional oil supply routes.